Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be exploring where we are in this cycle, but more importantly, the reasons that Bitcoin will drop to $70,000. Now, some of these are my opinions, but a lot of this that we're going to be talking about is based on the data in the market and the way that markets operate. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about some of the risk factors. We're going to be talking about some of the narratives, including this one that is starting to pop up, and a lot of people are starting to raise red flags, warning that Bitcoin could face a 51% attack as mining gets centralized. And if you don't agree or believe it, I mean, just look at the screen right here. There is a clear centralization going on in terms of the Bitcoin mining. I mean, look at the network hash rate. Foundry Digital, which is owned by Grayscale, has 27% of the network's hash rate. Antpool has about 16%. Combined, it's almost 51%. And this is just one indicator of what is going on in Bitcoin. I mean, even the Bitcoin maximalists are not calling this out. The Bitcoin maxis for years have said that, fiat is too centralized. All these other systems are centralized. Bitcoin fixes this because Bitcoin is decentralized. And not only are we seeing the Bitcoin mining network showing centralization, and we're going to get a little bit deeper into that in just a few minutes, we're also seeing it with the Bitcoin treasury companies. Now, I have been making video after video on this channel for literal months, telling my viewers to be cautious of where we are in the cycle. And now that we're starting to see some volatility, I guess is the word, people are starting to mirror my concerns. And I think that it's important that we cover some of the risk factors that are in the market. Because one of the things that we just saw at the mid to end of August is a lot more volatility with MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy has gone down in just 5 days before making this video from $380 down to $340 something, which is about a 14% decrease. And people are already freaking out. But by the way, this drop, even from $400 at the end of July to where we are, it's 21% decrease. People are freaking out. But if you actually compare the price with Bitcoin, while yes, MicroStrategy has underperformed Bitcoin for this entire period of time, the movements are in line with Bitcoin's price. And the MNAV, which everybody keeps talking about, right, the multiple, the premium that you're paying to the underlying Bitcoin is starting to compress, but it's also staying steady. But anyway, we're going to be covering this along with many other topics. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Give this video a free thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below and consider becoming a channel member. Sometimes we do deep dives into individual cryptos and blockchains. Kind of what we're doing today. We're kind of deep diving into what's going on with Bitcoin and the general crypto market, but this is more of a macro video, right? Understanding what's happening and putting it all together into one. So click the join button, click the subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, and let's start right here with where we are in the cycle. Now, there's data to show why Bitcoin is going to drop to $70,000, and we're going to get there in just a second. But we have to kind of set this up. Now, Raoul Pal, who has been talking about this extended cycle pretty much all 2025, which I think is complete nonsense, but again, we just disagree in our investment thesis. He said, I think the entire digital asset treasury thing is going to come down to who has a bear market strategy to mitigate severe discount to the MNAV and who doesn't. Those that don't will have forced liquidations. Those that have the right bear market strategy that allow for future compounding of the NAV will survive and then thrive and should experience higher valuations. Now, I don't agree with Raoul Pal on everything, but I agree with him here. This cycle, these digital asset treasuries are the Bitcoin mining companies of the previous cycle. Because in the previous cycle, look at this. This is Marathon Digital, largest Bitcoin mining company in the world right now. In Marathon Digital, what you can see here in 2021, it went from $2 up to $50, came back down to $20, and then went up to $75, maybe a little bit more. And then it went down 92% from November to July. 92% from the top to the bottom. It's pretty rough, right? It's a pretty rough rob. But here's the deal, right? At that time, there was no proxy for Bitcoin, right? So there was like a grayscale, which did have premiums, but there was no other way to invest. We didn't have all of these investment vehicles. We didn't have the ETFs, digital asset treasury companies, the MicroStrategy. We didn't have these in the previous cycles to the degree that we have them today. And so that's why I'm comparing it to these Bitcoin mining companies, because that's what people would invest in if they wanted to invest in infrastructure. Now people are investing in AI and Bitcoin mining companies, or Ethereum or data center companies, because those are the companies that are going to build out for AI, high power compute, Bitcoin mining, Ethereum validation, and so on. But what we saw is we have not seen a recovery to these highs, and people are expecting that we're going to see recoveries to these highs in altcoins, in the Bitcoin mining companies, and so on. But they're not taking into account a lot of the tokenomics that are in play, the dilution of the shareholders, the more shares that have been issued, the difference in valuations, more competition. And this is not just with the Bitcoin mining companies, but this is also with the Bitcoin treasury companies, and it's also with the altcoins. There's like 3 million different cryptos in existence right now. And you think that the top 20 that you're holding are going to pump 100x? Like, there's just too much distribution of the money and of the speculation for us to see these kind of 100x's across the board over and over and over. And this is where we do see diminishing returns. But what happened after the last bull run is a lot of Bitcoin mining companies ended up collapsing, or going through restructuring, or going through bankruptcy. Because what were they doing? At these peaks in the market, they were prepaying and pre-ordering all these Bitcoin mining machines, and then they prepaid them at the top of the market. And then they were at the bottom of the market, they had to deploy all these machines that were no longer worth what they paid. Energy costs went significantly higher, and Bitcoin was at a bottom. And so a lot of the Bitcoin mining companies started to liquidate their Bitcoin in a bear market. And on this channel, I was telling my viewers, guys, like, why did none of these companies have a strategy for the bear market? Like, you and I, right? I'm just a YouTuber and you're just whatever you do. Like, we're just normal people. And we were able to say, like, why are they pre-ordering and prepaying for all these machines that are going to be delivered in a bear market? But everybody thought we were going into an extended cycle. So nobody thought we were going to go to the bear market again. Another cycle where we are today. Everybody thinks, no, Cryptoviser, no bear market, no bear market, no bear market. Well, now even Raoul Pal is raising the alarm on this. And the digital asset treasury companies, these are the Bitcoin mining companies of the last cycle. And so none of them had a bear market strategy. Now they do. What are all the Bitcoin mining companies doing? They're all flipping to AI, except for Marathon. Marathon's still buying Bitcoin with debt the same way MicroStrategy is doing. But the other Bitcoin companies, the Bitcoin mining companies, what are they doing? They're pivoting to AI and HPC. So in a bear market, they can still perform and cash flow. But what are the digital asset treasury companies doing? What is MicroStrategy doing? Forget about MicroStrategy for a minute. There's a lot of other new ones, and we're going to get to some of them in just a second here. But before we do that, it's important to understand, right? No matter whether we're in a bull market, bear market, or sideways trading, you have to constantly question your thesis. A lot of people don't do this. And so when they hear Bitcoin's going to go down to $70,000, they're like, Cryptoviser, you're an idiot. I am unsubscribing from your channel. And it's like, okay, go ahead. Like, go ahead. But here's the deal, guys. You can have one opinion and also another opinion at the same exact time that counter to each other. And both could be somewhat true. But Peter Brand, who's a well-known trader for many, many years, he said, how can I post a chart suggesting a bull move one day and the next day post a chart with the opposite implications? He said, my questions to you are you not aware that opinions are not positions? I have many thoughts about the market before I actually act. Bingo, right? So you and I, we have to figure out what the market's going to do. And so to figure out what the market's going to do, if you're just saying, well, I'm a bull, the market's going to keep going up, and you're not basing that on any data, you're not analyzing the market. You're just pushing your opinion. I'm not pushing my opinion. I'm pushing my analysis. And my analysis can tell me that we're bullish one day and then the next day we're bearish. But not generally speaking, right? There could be bullish sentiment in the market and also bearish sentiment in the market at the same time. Which one is stronger? Which one is more likely to succeed, right? And so this idea that we're not going to go to $70,000, maybe we won't. But what is the likelihood we go to 70,000 before we go to 500,000? A lot of bulls will say, no, we're definitely going to go to 500 before 70. But I'm like, but 70 is closer. So why wouldn't we go to 70 first, especially if we're at the end stages of a bull market, right? Peter Brand said, why would you not want to always be analyzing fundamentally or with trading analysis or technical analysis, an argument for binary outcomes? This is part of Bayesian probability. Are you aware that there are some really smart, knowledgeable, and profitable people always on the other side of your positions? Wouldn't you want to know what they know and think? Absolutely. This is why I talk about MicroStrategy so much, because they are the risk factor and they're the largest and loudest group. And they're saying, no, Saylor's a genius. He's going to keep doing this. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to understand what they're thinking. Like, why do they see Michael Saylor as the savior and MicroStrategy as this amazing product? Because it's not just MicroStrategy. These other companies are getting into Bitcoin at higher prices, at literal all-time record highs. We're going to get to that in just a second. Are you aware that every 10 charts he posts on X, I might only take a position in one or maybe two? I have a lot of people, like, I'll post a bearish video, like what the market would consider bearish video about a crypto. It's like a specific crypto that I hold. And people will come in the comments and they'll be like, you see, this person's just fudding so they can buy back lower. And I'm like, what? Like, I have less than 100,000 subscribers on this channel. We are not moving the market by any stretch of the imagination. And if you think that we are, you literally have no idea what the hell's going on in these markets, right? There's trillions of dollars in the market. So we're not moving it. But there's people who say that, and they'll be like, oh, Cryptoviser's posting a bearish video. He must have sold. It's like, why can't I think outside of just the bullish narrative and still hold the crypto? Oh, I can, though. But these people who don't understand this, they make you think like, and they're all over, Michael Saylor's so smart. Raoul Pal saying extended cycle. And it's like, okay, but just because Raoul Pal says it doesn't mean it's going to occur, right? And so you can be bullish and also bearish at the same time, and also not hold a position in what you have an opinion on. But anyway, talking about the top of the cycle, Chimp Zoo on X said, remember the cycle ended with this guy bragging about market buying the top. And effectively, he's talking about David Bailey, who is from Bitcoin Magazine, who just started Nakamoto. And Nakamoto is a new Bitcoin treasury company. He's been working on getting the merger done and the Bitcoin purchase for a few months now. But effectively, they bought the top of the market. I mean, like quite literally. Kindly MD, which is now called Nakamoto, Naka, N-A-K-A. They added 5744 Bitcoin to their balance sheet. Total cost $678 million. Average price $118,000. So now, what happens if we go to 70,000? What happens to this company? Are we going to see a forced liquidation? What is their bear market strategy, as Raoul Pal is asking? Because in my view, whether we're at the top or close to the top, it doesn't matter. The top is in. The top is here. The further we go, the closer we are. Whether it's 6 months from now or a year from now, doesn't matter. Michael Saylor is saying he's not going to sell any Bitcoin. Now, whether he does or does not, that's a whole different story. But he's saying he's not going to sell any. And I would imagine many of these companies like Nakamoto are going to do the same. We're not going to sell any. We're not going to sell any. We're not going to sell any. Okay, so now they're buying the top of the market. And if we go to a corrective phase, we go down to 70,000, which is not even that far off from where we are. It's like a 30 or 40% drop. What does this company do? Their stock is going to be down at least that much, if not more. And their shareholders, are they going to be happy? I don't think so. So yeah, it was interesting. David Bailey wrote this. He said, think people will find this interesting. We've documented the entire merger process, including buying the Bitcoin on film. When we were in the market, we were buying roughly $1 million of Bitcoin per minute. Bitcoin ate it like a buzzsaw. The market is insanely liquid. Now, here's the deal, guys. I'm not saying it's not. And I'm not saying that he's lying. I think that he's correct. I mean, when I saw this number, I was like, holy we have never really gotten insight into how easy the market's eating this Bitcoin purchase up. But I want you guys to remember, they're buying $1 million per minute. That means somebody is selling $1 million per minute. And I think that the selling side is more interesting than the buying side. Because there's this idea that, oh, well, they'll run out of Bitcoin because Michael Saylor's going to buy it all. All these Bitcoin treasury companies are going to buy it all. And that may be true, but we're seeing a centralization occurring in Bitcoin treasury companies where one company can move the market. One man can move the global Bitcoin market. That is a risk. And that's probably the biggest risk there is. Not saying he's going to move the market to the downside, because I think Michael Saylor wants to move the market to the upside, right? But one hiccup that may be completely out of Michael Saylor's control and all these companies who own Bitcoin control, one hiccup and the entire market will collapse. And I believe that it's going to occur. I don't know it's going to be strategy. I don't know it's going to be Bitcoin treasury companies. Maybe it won't be any of these. Maybe it'll be a black swan and it'll be, the Bitcoin mining companies or something else. But you got companies like Nakamoto buying the top of the market. Anthony Pompliano also bought the top of the market. His company ProCap holds 4,950 Bitcoin at $516 million purchase price. So if we do 516 million and we divide that by 4,950, they paid $104,000 per Bitcoin. Now, you may say, but Cryptoviser, this is lower than where we are at about 110, 120,000 all-time high, so he didn't buy the top. Okay, what happens if we go to 70,000? And you're going to probably say, Cryptoviser, why do you keep saying 70,000? The reason I keep saying 70,000 is because this is the buy price for strategy. And so following these markets for as long as we have on this channel, it only makes sense that the market would test this. This idea from MicroStrategy holders and even Bitcoin maximalists that the market is just going to keep going up and that we're not going to go back down to 7. Every single cycle, we've tested previous cycles. Every cycle. And so the idea that we're not going to test the previous cycle, this cycle, is absurd. I mean, it's really, really absurd. So, like, for instance, in the bear market, after FTX collapsed, we hit 15,500. That was below the previous cycle's all-time high of $20,000. So this cycle, the last cycle's all-time high was about $69,000, $70,000. That's also MicroStrategy's buy price. This is also 30 to 40% lower than the other Bitcoin treasury companies' buy prices. And so the idea that we're not going to go below the previous all-time record high of $70,000 is absurd. Every cycle we test it. Now, that does tend to be kind of around the bottom, but we test it. And so we are at all-time record highs, and people are the most bullish they've ever been. In my view, it's the opposite. You have to be the most bearish because we're going to drop. Whether we have 3-6 more months before we drop, we're going to drop. And so the downside, the money that you can make on the downside, in my view, is significantly more than you can make on the upside at this point. Now, when we go back down to 70,000, we have to reassess because here's the deal. If these treasury companies, like Raoul Pal says, does not have a bear market strategy, they will have forced liquidations. Wall Street will force them to liquidate because they don't have any other business, right? There's no cash flow. And it's going to happen. We just don't know which companies it's going to happen to. Now, granted, I think that if it does happen, we will see a forced liquidation, and then you'll probably see the likes of MicroStrategy, if it's not them, coming in and buying at a discount. But there will be mass chaos in the market. And if one collapses, there's going to be fear of others collapsing. Same thing that happened at FTX. 10 companies collapsed, and then FTX collapsed, and then people wanted to worry because FTX collapsed. Then they were worried. Then they were saying, well, but Cryptoviser, it's going to be Binance next. Grayscale's going to go down next. I'm like, guys, 15 companies already went down. FTX is it. They were at the center of all of it. And I was laying that out the entire year. People saying, Cryptoviser, you're just too much of a bear. We have an extended cycle, all that nonsense. And they were all wrong. They were all wrong. So, yeah. And by the way, Ethereum, same thing is going on. People are the most bullish they've ever been. And it is a bullish time because we are seeing Ethereum strategy companies occurring and starting to buy Ethereum. But guys, they're not buying on the open market. They're buying through private sales, which don't move the price. And by the way, this is the exit liquidity. This is exit liquidity. That is why you're seeing all this Ethereum getting unstaked. Go to validatorq.com and you will see the update for the past 2 weeks, or maybe 1 week. I think it was 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, we've had 700 to 1 million Ethereum in the exit queue. And this is rolling. So it's on a 15-day exit queue. And it's over, those get unlocked. We're seeing more and more and more getting added. So we have almost 1 million Ethereum on a rolling basis ready to exit or on its way to exiting staking. What do you think people are doing with their coins? They're selling them, whether through private transactions or putting it on exchanges, getting ready to sell. But you'll see a lot of posts out there. Well, they say, but Cryptoviser, if you look at the exchanges, Ethereum on exchanges is at all-time record lows. And I'm like, until this unlocks. And then what do you think is going to happen? They're going to be moving it to an exchange and selling it. So it doesn't matter that it's a low right now. It takes half a second to send coin to an exchange. And then it's no longer at the low. So you have to look at the metrics and really look and say, it's happening on Ethereum, they're selling. Bitcoin, they're selling. But we only hear about the buying. Oh, MicroStrategy's buying. Oh, GameStop is buying. Oh, Nakamoto's buying. Well, that means that people are selling also. That's the exit liquidity. They know there's money. They know that Wall Street is buying. They know MicroStrategy's buying. Marathon Digital's buying. All Nakamoto's buying. So they're selling. But you think you're going to outsmart these whales who have been holding for years multi-million-dollar bags. You think you're going to outsmart them and say, nope, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait because we're going to go to 250,000. When I'm looking at it and I'm saying we're going to go to 70,000 because once that exit liquidity ends, and it will, because here's the deal. We are going to hit a bear market. And as we go into a bear market, people are going to keep buying that dip. And I think we're already starting to see that with MicroStrategy. Buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. But at some point, the money flow will stop. And it's starting to slow down. You could see it from their purchases. $18 million, $51 million. It's starting to slow down. And that tells me investor confidence is waning. Ability to raise money is waning. So if it's waning now, when you are the most bullish, what do you think is going to happen if we drop another 10, 20, 15, 30%? People are going to say, but Cryptoviser, they're going to keep buying it because they want to buy the dip. And it's like, no. They know. Smart money gets it. They know we're going to test 73,000. They know it. That's why they're selling their coins. That's why they're exiting Ethereum staking. They are selling because they understand we will hit a bear market. They understand there's no such thing as an extended cycle. They understand once we start the drop, which may already be underway, there's no recovering. Look at this. After the complacency phase, no ability to recover your money. It's straight down. And every little jump after that is just to trap you further in and take and squeeze every last bit out of you. We are 18 months into the cycle and even longer into the bull run. The bull run started in September of 2023. Look at how far up we've gone since then. And people are saying, Cryptoviser, the bull market hasn't even started. Okay. So like I said, Bitcoin is highly centralized right now. The ownership of it, where one man can say anything and move the market. One man. Meanwhile, we're also seeing Semler Scientific. They're asking their shareholders to approve all preferred stock. So I want you to think about this, right? They're saying 50% of all shares need to approve this to sign it. Now, Semler Scientific is another Bitcoin treasury company. Let's see how much Bitcoin they have. Semler, it says here 5,000 Bitcoin. So they want to do what MicroStrategy is doing by creating these debt facilities, Stride, Strike, Stretch, Strife, these preferred stocks. And they want the shareholders to approve it. A preferred stock is above the share stock, right? So if, let's say MicroStrategy did go bankrupt, the MicroStrategy shareholders are the last in line to get access to the Bitcoin. All of these products are first. So now Semler is asking their shareholders to approve preferred stock, which is above what they even hold, to then go raise more money to buy more Bitcoin. And people are cheering this on and saying, oh yeah, this is a great idea. Let's approve it. And I'm like, you're literally voting for your share to be worth almost nothing by authorizing preferred stock. People don't get it. They do not get it. And it's really amazing. And this is why I believe we're going to hit 70,000. The more bullish the market is over these ridiculous debt products that are just go buy Bitcoin, right? Just go buy Bitcoin yourself. The more people are bullish about this and don't see the risk of the centralization, the more bearish I am. The more that I believe we will get to 70,000. Now, this does not mean that I'm not hedged on the other end, but I think that we have more of a likelihood of going down in the next 6 to 12 months than we do going up. Row Rider posted this. He said, I post a lot about the incoming collapse of MicroStrategy, but rarely talk about what will happen to Bitcoin price when it goes down. The downfall will trigger competing bullish and bearish Bitcoin catalysts with the final outcome extremely net negative. Now, we're already starting to see that because even though there's bearish sentiment in the market and the price is kind of showing a little bit of weakness, double top, quadruple top, there's still a lot of bullishness in the market, right? Now, we're going to come back to that tweet in a minute, but I want you guys to be aware of this other risk. So we have the risk of the Bitcoin treasury companies, the risk of Michael Saylor as the largest holder, right? And Foundry USA and Antpool could do Bitcoin to what Quebec did to Monero, a 51% profitability attack that completely breaks decentralization and censorship resistance. And they're basically showing that the mining pools, Foundry and Antpool, have more than 50% of the mining hash rate of the entire Bitcoin network. You can see that on this chart as well. 26% is Foundry, 16% is Antpool, and 11% is Via Pool, which means 3 pools have more than 51% of the network. But Cryptoviser, Bitcoin is the most decentralized thing in the history of the world. Is it? Or is the validation decentralized because there's no central middleman? But the actual centralization of the network, three chains, 3 pools, I should say, can take over the network, the Bitcoin network, and rewrite it. Now, the likelihood is they're not going to, but they could. And that's a risk. So we got all these risks, and people are the most bullish they've ever been. So here are some of the bullish forces, right? Some investors are fleeing MicroStrategy. They're going to buy Bitcoin via spot ETFs to keep exposure, providing some support. So you may see a drop in the MicroStrategy price and an increase in the Bitcoin price. Okay, this will compress the MNAV because people will exit their MicroStrategy position and then just go buy the Bitcoin. So they'll end up effectively keeping MicroStrategy somewhat elevated. But that will only last for so long, right? Pair trades, ARB investors will ramp up shorts of MicroStrategy and longs of Bitcoin as the MNAV collapses. And the bearish forces here is there's no top buyer. Guys, the top buyer is MicroStrategy. The top buyer is Nakamoto. There is no other top buyers in the market. That's a problem. Liquidity tightens markets wide, and corrections will hit harder and bounces will be muted. Because once the collapse starts, people, and especially now that Wall Street's involved, they are just going to dump. And that's going to create more liquidations, more dumping, more liquidations, more dumping. Pair trades profit as the MNAV plummets to 1 and below. Pair traders will close their positions by covering MicroStrategy shorts and selling their Bitcoin. Even though there's not necessarily a direct liquidation mechanism, $71 billion of Bitcoin under duress will cause rapid panic selling and repositioning. Saylor positioned himself as the face of Bitcoin maximalism, the ultimate hodl at all costs. Without the Messiah narrative, many mainstream Bitcoin investors will also lose faith. With the stock in jeopardy and so many investor and debt classes exposed to the same underlying Bitcoin, there will be a battle to get to the front of the line for a payout. And then contagion, a mass exodus out of Bitcoin treasury companies and holding vehicles will amplify the effects. And so there are a lot of catalysts at play here, and there are a lot of different scenarios that can play out. Generally speaking, I'm more bearish than bullish at this point in the cycle, in the second half of 2025. I think, again, in the 6 to 12 months to follow, we're going to have more downside than upside. And I think that's the way to position. After that, like if we were in the middle of 2026 and we already had the downtrend, I would become the most bullish in the market, most likely. But we have to wait and see. There's a lot of bullish catalysts in 2026 that everything is setting up for in the markets, especially a new Federal Reserve chairman, which will be occurring next year. And so for the rest of 2025, I think the market is going to set up and is already showing signs of setting up for a bearish trend and a downside risk much larger than the upside potential here in the markets. And so for me, when I look at the Bitcoin price, when I look at the MicroStrategy liquidation level, or at least the level that they purchased in at, when I look at all these other Bitcoin treasury companies taking out debt to buy Bitcoin at all-time record highs and starting out that way, I think that what we will see is going to be much greater than the downside risk that we saw from FTX. I think the risk is even greater today than it was. I mean, we saw MicroStrategy, like I said at the beginning of the video, MicroStrategy just in 1 month went down 20%, when the Bitcoin price in 1 month did not. Let me zoom this in. Let's zoom this in. So you guys, let's actually zoom this out a little bit. Let's put this in 6 months, okay, so that we can see it a little bit better. And so you guys can see in the last 1 or 2 months, we've actually gone up and it's been sideways trading and kind of coming down. You can see a little bit of a down angle to this top of the chart. And so if MicroStrategy is dropping 20% and Bitcoin is not, you can see that the MNAV is starting to compress already. And the further Bitcoin goes down and the MNAV compression continues, it's a pocket of air under the MicroStrategy price. And MicroStrategy's at $70,000 price point. These other companies are at a much higher dollar price point. So while MicroStrategy is going to be dealing with, defending the $70,000 DCA price, these other companies, they're going to be underwater 30-40% at that point. And this could be in just a matter of months. So a lot to take in and a lot to kind of assess in the market. But in my view, a $70,000 test is almost baked into the cake at this point. And not only is it baked into the cake, but I think that there's a potential to go much, much lower. But we'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below if you want to help support the channel. Click the join or subscribe plus button here on YouTube to learn more about becoming a channel member. Thanks to all of our channel members and everybody who watches every day and gives the video a free thumbs up. I really want to know what you guys think about all of this craziness happening in the market. Where are we Are these companies prepared for a bear market, and are you prepared for the bear market? Let me know down below in the comments. I'll see you guys on the next video. Invest responsibly, do your own research, and crypto on.